So a little story for you. It's been a very eventful couple of days for Director Colin, myself, several other people here, most of which I can't talk to you about yet. But if you were following me on Instagram, you probably saw a lot of it. So it culminated last night. We went out to eat with a couple of the high-level mustaches here at CBS. It's well after closing time, so they're not watching the show. And one of the high-level mustaches, which ironic because he himself does not have a mustache, but if you're management, you are a high-level mustache. He said to me in a crowded restaurant in downtown Nashville, "I think you should talk more gambling on Late Kick." And I said, mustache, mustache, mustache. "Have you not heard of the Ramen Noodle Express?" And he said, "No, tell me about this Ramen Noodle Express. Where does it run to? What rail corridor is it in?" "Well, it's not an actual train, sir." "Well, explain it to me. Make it make sense." "Well, it's our gambling segment on Late Kick." "What does that have to do with ramen noodles or a train?" I can't spell it out for you. All I'm telling you is it means something to our audience. They know what it means. It's kind of inside, and if you don't watch the show, you don't get it, you don't get it. That's fine. But you guys are up there. In the corporate world, you got $50 ice cream scoops. We're down here in the trenches. We're down in the wells and the mines, and we are trying very much to stay off the ramen noodle diet, and the only way we can do that in many cases is by hitting Western Michigan plus 3.5 late in the game this fall in week 3. And that is where the Ramen Noodle Express was born. And every fall in the season, weeks 1, weeks 2, week 7, week 8, you know to come here, and you know we're giving you enough winners to keep you off that diet. Unless you start parlaying, at which point you deserve every bit of terrible luck that comes your way. Because it's not luck at all. Parlays are Satan's tool. And I can't put it any plainer than that. So don't do meth, don't bet parlays, 2 of the only rules we have on the show. But I want to take a look at some games of the year. These, I want to be careful here, these are not games that we're telling you to bet on yet. Now, if you choose to, that's fine. I have moved on a couple of these, and I will tell you the bets I've made. But I want to tell you the way we hand out any pick on this show during the fall is we run it through a model. And it's proprietary. I work with someone, and we've built this thing for a long time. When I say we, he mainly builds. I mainly give vision and some guidance and assistance. But we're really proud of it, and we really trust it. We don't brag about it a lot, because if we bragged about the percentages it hits out, it would sound like we're full of it and we're lying. So we just win. So we did last year on the show. The picks we handed out here hit at 53 and 37. I think it was like a 60.1% winning percentage against the spread. Incredibly good. And so having said that, I decided, all right, high-level mustache, I'm going to meet you halfway. We're going to talk some gambling on Late Kick tonight. I am going to run the model on 5 games of the year. I'm going to tell you what the Vegas number is right now. You can bet 4 out of these 5 games, and then I'm going to tell you what our model says. Let's start, and we're just going random here. Georgia versus Florida. This is the game. I can't remember. It's a little bit later in the season, but the Vegas number right now is Georgia minus 7.5. You can bet this number widely at minus 7.5. Keep in mind, what I'm going to show you is raw model output. So there would be a couple of other factors added in. If this was the week of this game, we would take the raw model data, and then we would add a couple of little caveats of our own, and it would pump out our official number. But our raw model data, if we have that, we'll roll it now, is Georgia minus 9. So we still lean a little heavier on the dogs than do the guys in the desert who have set this number. This is a game that has a chance to move on opening weekend. Keep in mind, this is a futures number, so it moves with the market throughout the season. Believe it or not, this is probably the next most losable game that Georgia has all year. They've got the Clemson game in week 1, and this is probably the next most losable game they have all year. Now, that doesn't really mean anything within the context of this, but what I'm saying is something that would seriously affect this line is probably going to have to be happening to Florida. Probably not happening on the Georgia side. So if Georgia were to get pasted like 44-27 in the first week, you may see some movement on this. But right now, this is where it stands. We think the opposite. Okay, what our model in a forward-thinking fashion, because we built a model that thinks, is doing is we think Georgia's offense is probably going to overachieve relative to whatever the market expectation is right now, and probably about 1.5 points per season overachieve relative to expectations. So that explains the gap between Vegas and our number. Moving on. I think, Jesse, the one game that we did not have a Vegas number on, but I have a very strong opinion on, is Utah at USC. This is going to, I think, determine the Pac-12 South. That's my opinion. But we're not handing out season predictions here yet. But what I do want to tell you is this is October 9th. It's the only big game on Southern Cal's schedule where the Trojans don't have a decided scheduling dynamic advantage. They have got a very workable schedule. It's like Clay Helton drew it up himself, except for this game. And this is the wrong game to be on the wrong end of the scheduling dynamic, because I think this is their toughest game. This is a veteran Utah team, one we're going to talk about more in just a second. This is our number. We've got Southern Cal -1. Let me translate that for you, because that adds in home field. We think Utah is better than USC. My power ratings, when they come out a little bit later this month, unless something crazy happens, we will have Utah rated higher than USC. So keep that in mind. There is a word going around the water cooler out in Salt Lake City that's not all that hard to believe, that this is such a veteran-laden team for Utah, and there is so little brand new install happening out there right now, that this is a team that is ripe to be able to circle a game, especially one that you're going to have a bye week before anyway, and have your own totally unique game plan installed for that particular contest. And I think that's exactly what Utah is doing. Partly right now, partly in the summer, and then they can fine-tune that thing when they get to the bye week and got 13 days prep when they get in the season. Utah's going to be ready for Southern Cal. How about Penn State at Iowa? This one is happening on what I think is the biggest Saturday of the year. And it is a game that has such variance, because both teams have games, several of which that they could lose, that could impact the market's opinion here. To give you an idea of what happens before this matchup, Penn State plays at Wisconsin, they play Auburn, and they play Indiana. Iowa, by this time, will have already played Indiana, at Iowa State, and at Maryland. All 6 of those games are losable. Some of them they'll be dogs in. Having said that, the current Vegas number on this game is Iowa -3. And our model just disagrees. And I would agree with our model here. There is not much tweaking I would do on this line. We have got this at pick. I have already bet Penn State in this spot. So this is one I've moved on. It's not an official handout, but it's one I've already moved on. I really like Penn State in this spot. You're going to need to watch Penn State in week 1. It's a losable game. It's a game they won't be favored in. They're at Wisconsin. So if you don't want to move here, and I already played it because I just like the number, but there is some strategy in waiting until after week 1, because Penn State could lose to Wisconsin in week 1 and not change my opinion on this game one bit. I mean, if they lose 34-27, I still see this game the same way, but the market may not. Especially if Iowa were to beat Indiana in week 1, you may see this move off and go to 3.5 or 4, and then you could get some added value. I'm happy with the value now. I just want to tell you that's how we would explain that, and why maybe if you wanted to wait, you should wait. Iowa State at Oklahoma. For personal reasons, I'm not going to have much comment on this game, but I did feel that I owed it to you to show you the number and to show you there is no bias involved in the late kick model. Iowa State at Oklahoma, we have as Sooners, well, I'm going to tell you what Vegas has first. Vegas has Oklahoma -9.5. We got Oklahoma -11. Now, again, if I had a green screen behind me, I would just put a green circle on my chest right now so you could see through it to represent how much this rips my heart out. Because what I want to be able to tell you is I want to tell you, oh, we think this is way too fat. There's a lot of public square money on Oklahoma. No, friends. This should be under a touchdown. But that's just not the way the model sees it right now. Like I said, I'm not going to give you much comment because I wish the model didn't see it this way. But this one is, it's later in the season, time to change. We'll see. Maybe Matt Campbell installs some new gadgets in his offense, because believe me, they got plenty of time and plenty of returning starters too. The last one I wanted to hit right quick is Bama at Texas A&M. This is happening the same day as Penn State, Iowa. Bama -10.5 at Texas A&M. That's what our model sees. And it's very much in line, a little bit shorter, but pretty much in line with what the guys in the desert see. Now, with Alabama, I think I talked about this like a month ago, we see every Alabama game right this second as about a point to a point and a half short of what the Vegas number is. That's the Dallas Cowboy effect. That's very, very public nature of team being baked into line sort of deal. So we agree with the odds makers. It's just the odds makers have baked in a little added juice there without calling it juice on Alabama. But this is a fascinating game because it may decide the SEC West. But I also want you to think about this. If you go look at Texas A&M's schedule, you could make the argument that this is the first game, potentially, that they'll have to ask Haynes King to win. Now, that carries with it its own set of obstacles. Alabama's always a big obstacle. But then the third context that you need here to make this very, very in focus is Alabama's defense is as poised to play takeaway this year and harass your quarterback and spike on those havoc rate indexes or indices as they have been in several years. So you've got a formula for disaster there, potentially, wherein you're asking your quarterback to do more through the air than he will at any point all year, and you're facing the most opportunistic and lethal defense that you will face at any point all year. So Alabama minus 10.5, or 11.5, you're going to look at that, you're going to say, whoo, that's a fat number. How does it get out of hand? Well, that's how it would get out of hand. Turnovers is how it would get out of hand.